buenos días. Sean todas y todos cordialmente bienvenidas y bienvenidos a nuestra ceremonia de inauguración del 10º Foro y Expo Internacional de la Universidad de Guanajuato. Lo anterior en el marco de la celebración de los 25 años de colaboración académica con KWANTLEN POLYTECHNIC University en Canadá. Para dar inicio con esta ceremonia, rendiremos honores al estandarte universitario. Les pedimos tener la gentileza de ponerse de pie y entonar respetuosamente nuestro himno universitario. Muchas gracias. Pueden ocupar sus lugares. A continuación, me permitiré presentar a nuestras y nuestros invitados especiales. Agradecemos la presencia de la doctora Claudia Susana Gómez López, rectora general de la Universidad de Guanajuato. El doctor Salvador Hernández Castro, secretario general de la Universidad de Guanajuato. El doctor Brett Favaro, Climate Strategy Lead, KWANTLEN POLYTECHNIC University en Canadá. El doctor Martín Picón Núñez, rector del campus Guanajuato. El doctor Rogelio Costilla Salazar, rector del campus Irapuato Salamanca. El doctor Mauro Napsuciale Mendíbil, rector del campus León. El doctor Juan Antonio Sánchez Márquez, director del Colegio del Nivel Medio Superior. La licenciada Leslie Araceli León Sotomayor, enlace de Relaciones Internacionales y Colaboración Académica, en representación de la doctora Isaura Arreguín Arreguín, rectora del campus Celaya Salvatierra. La doctora Diana del Consuelo Caldera González, secretaria académica de la Universidad. La doctora Graciela María de la Luz Ruiz Aguilar, secretaria de Gestión y Desarrollo de la Universidad. La maestra María Adriana Aguilera Arrieta, directora de Internacionalización de la Universidad de Guanajuato. Asimismo, agradecemos la asistencia de directoras y directores de división, directoras y directores de departamento, titulares de entidades administrativas, representantes de instituciones de educación superior socias, comunidad académica y estudiantil de nuestra Casa de Estudios, representantes de la COEPES, de la ANUYES, de agencias de cooperación y público en general. Sean todas y todos bienvenidos. Cedemos ahora el uso de la voz a la maestra María Adriana Aguilera Arrieta, directora de Internacionalización de la Universidad de Guanajuato, quien nos dirigirá un mensaje de bienvenida.
Good morning, everyone. The International Office at the University of Guanajuato warmly welcomes you. In this 10th anniversary of the Forum and Fair of the University of Guanajuato, we bring an important topic to analyze, share, and build upon: sustainability. The word sustainable is a beautiful one. The Royal Spanish Academy defines sustainable as an adjective. This adjective implies something that is defensible, reasonable, and maintainable without depleting resources. For Mexican higher education institutions, sustainability is not just convenient, which it is, as it is imperative. It's not only trendy and mandatory, but also essential because it allows us to maintain our work without exhausting already limited resources for education and for the world. The antonym of sustainable is unsustainable. And unsustainable describes our current mode of spending, consuming, and producing. Beyond being a beautiful word, sustainability became a concept that encompasses economic, political, social, and cultural dimensions. The power of the word and its conceptual development transcends the traditionally disciplinary boundaries and becomes a tool for thought that nourishes the economy, education, ethics, culture, and global governance. On its journey from word to concept, originally viewed as a technical goal, sustainability has evolved into a civilization paradigm. The year 1987 marks a turning point in the understanding of sustainability as a concept, with the Brundtland Report effectively defining it as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This provides a framework for higher education institutions to work within the environmental, social, economic, and cultural spheres. It then connects with the disciplines that address this dimension in academic spaces, making sustainability a cross-cutting issue, just like internationalization, interculturality, gender, human rights, and social co-responsibility. Thus, for universities, sustainability is not a minor matter. It represents a commitment to a civilizational paradigm shift. Sustainability is both an ethical and strategic necessity for all social authors, governments, institutions, civil society, higher education institutions, companies, entrepreneurs, and beyond. The keynote conferences we are pleased to share with you this morning brought us in a partnership with KWANTLEN Polytechnic University of Canada and presented by Brett Favreau and Candy Ho, are meant to inspire us and call us to action. Let us celebrate 25 years of sustained and sustainable collaboration, nourishing our communities in the process. And this 10th anniversary edition has been woven with full collaborative awareness between the University of Guanajuato and our international partners that also made an effort. Our natural allies, both within the UG, among sister institutions in the region, in Mexico and through our institutional allies in cooperation agencies, embassies, institutes, and of course, the heart and soul and purpose, our students. This ongoing effort to make the UG International Forum and Fair a meeting point has become wonderful fruit. Since last year, academic partnerships have been formed, connections between administrators have been done, faculty members, and the institutions we convene have been strengthened. That's where a meeting point is important for us to do. And under the open and warm leadership of the General Rector's Office of the University of Guanajuato, we now have the opportunity to join forces, amplify our actions, and benefit future generations. Few quick data, and I'll finish in English, and then I'll have to change into Spanish. The participant countries we have are 15. Germany, Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, South Korea, Costa Rica, Spain, United States, France, Italy, Japan, Mexico, obviously, the Netherlands. We have institutions from Mexico, 15, and our pavilion, it's gathering with more than 60 international students. These numbers, of course, are people that are here to get together, communicate, and work together. And last but not least, I would kindly ask you to clap gladly to my beautiful team at the International Office, including campaign coordinators, directives, and fellow companions. This will be a time to enjoy our efforts. Y bueno, gracias. En verdad es un equipazo el que ha hecho posible que hoy estemos aquí. Luego vamos a tomar un momentito para contarles todas las aventuras que acontecieron para que pudiéramos estar hoy aquí. Pero muy buenos días a todas y todos. Ahora en español, la Dirección de Internacionalización de la Universidad de Guanajuato les abre hospitalariamente las puertas en esta edición de 10 aniversario del Foro y Feria Internacionales. Tenemos un tema importantísimo por discutir, analizar, compartir y construir: la sustentabilidad. La palabra sustentable es bonita. La Real Academia de la Lengua Española dice que sustentable es un adjetivo. Este adjetivo implica defendible, sostenible, razonable. Implica que se puede manifestar, que se puede mantener sin agotar los recursos, y eso es muy importante. Las instituciones de educación superior mexicana nos conviene lo sustentable. Nos conviene no solamente porque es imperativo, está de moda o es mandatorio, sino porque se puede mantener sin agotar los recursos que de por sí son escasos para la educación. Interesantísimo el antónimo de sostenible, pues es insostenible. Pero lo que verdaderamente es insostenible es el modo actual de gasto, consumo y producción. Además de bonita, la palabra sostenible se ha convertido en concepto. El concepto de sostenibilidad contiene dimensiones económicas, políticas, sociales y culturales que tenemos que atender. La fuerza de la palabra y su desarrollo conceptual trasciende el tradicional ámbito disciplinario para convertirse en una herramienta del pensamiento que alimenta a la economía, la educación, la ética, la cultura y la gobernanza global. En el trayecto de la palabra a convertirse en concepto, de haberse considerado una meta técnica al inicio, se ha proyectado para convertirse en un asunto civilizatorio. El año 1987 se define como un parteaguas de la sustentabilidad como concepto, porque el informe Brundtland eficazmente coloca la fórmula de la sustentabilidad como satisfacer las necesidades presentes sin comprometer las necesidades de las generaciones futuras. Esto da pauta para que las instituciones de educación superior trabajemos en los ámbitos ambiental, social, económico y cultural, y de ahí a las disciplinas en las que se atienden estas dimensiones en los espacios académicos, entonces la sustentabilidad se convierte en un asunto también transversal, al igual que la internacionalización, la interculturalidad, el género, los derechos humanos y la corresponsabilidad social. Entonces, la sustentabilidad para las universidades no es una cosa menor, es una apuesta de cambio de paradigma civilizatorio. La sustentabilidad es una necesidad ética y estratégica de todos los actores sociales y como se quieran acomodar, gobiernos, instituciones, sociedad civil, instituciones de educación superior, empresas, empresarios, etcétera. Las conferencias magistrales que les vamos a compartir el día de hoy de la mano de nuestro socio de KWANTLEN Polytechnic University en Canadá, en la voz de Brett Favaro y Candy Ho, tienen por objeto inspirarnos y llamarnos a la acción. Celebremos estos 25 años de colaboración sostenida y sostenible, retroalimentando a nuestras comunidades. Esta edición número 10 de aniversario está tejida con plena conciencia colaborativa entre la Universidad de Guanajuato y nuestros socios institucionales. Nuestros aliados naturales, tanto al interior de la Universidad de Guanajuato como nuestras instituciones hermanas de la región, nuestros cómplices institucionales, que son las agencias de cooperación, las embajadas, los institutos, y nuestro corazón y razón de ser, nuestros estudiantes. Este esfuerzo de hacer el Foro y Feria Internacional de la Universidad de Guanajuato un punto de encuentro ha rendido frutos maravillosos desde el año pasado. Se hicieron alianzas académicas, se reforzaron los lazos entre gestores, profesoras, profesores y las instancias que convocan a las oportunidades de internacionalización. Bajo el liderazgo abierto y cálido de la Rectoría General de la Universidad de Guanajuato, hoy tenemos la posibilidad de sumar estas fuerzas, hacer exponenciales nuestras acciones y beneficiar a las generaciones futuras. De los países que vienen a participar hoy, voy a abreviar porque también pues, se pronuncian más o menos igual en inglés que en español, y de las cifras que tenemos de gente participando, instituciones, solamente les quisiera recalcar el punto importante que nos trae aquí hoy, que es que esos números son personas que tienen un tema en común para desarrollar. Tenemos varias tareas que atender en torno a la sustentabilidad y les quiero pedir al final, pero no al último, un caluroso aplauso a mi maravilloso equipo de la Oficina Internacional, incluidas las y los coordinadores y enlaces de los 4 campos, a las autoridades, compañeros y aliados todos de la Dirección de Internacionalización. Bienvenidos todos.
Agradecemos a la maestra Aguilera Arrieta su mensaje de bienvenida. A continuación, escucharemos la intervención del doctor Brett Favaro, Climate Strategy Lead de KWANTLEN Polytechnic University en Canadá.
All right, everybody. Nice to see you all. My name's Brett, and as was announced, I'm the Climate Strategy Lead for KWANTLEN Polytechnic University. I'm also the Dean of the Faculty of Science. And it's a real honor and privilege to be here before all of you today and to represent our university at this event. I was asked to say a few words to help kick off the conference here, and it struck me that I'm playing a part in history. So one of the things we're commemorating today is the 25th anniversary of our signing an MOU, and I've got that MOU right here. It's called the North American Mobility Project, and I couldn't help myself. I flipped to the back, and I looked at who signed this. And the first thing that jumped out to me is something that changed a lot since then. We're not KWANTLEN University College anymore. So in those 25 years, we've changed from a college to a university. We're searching for our identity, and we're trying to figure out how to make an impact in the world. And I also looked at this and I thought, geez, what was I doing 25 years ago? I was in high school. So some things have changed a lot. But some things haven't changed very much at all. The crises that we're trying to respond to through the sustainability focus of this event, biodiversity has gotten worse over those 25 years. The climate crisis has gotten worse over those 25 years. And yet our understanding of what needs to be done, our development of the technologies that will solve this, our development of our understanding of how to proceed here has only gotten better. The other thing that hasn't changed over time is the need for friendship. None of these problems that we're trying to solve can be done alone. Not by one person, not by 10 people, it requires everybody. And what we can do here today and over the next few days is cultivate those friendships and those relationships that will help tackle these problems at the scale they need to be tackled. I'm very excited today to see my colleague Candy Ho. She's doing a talk on what we're doing at KPU on the sustainability side. And what my hope is as we have these conversations, is that I and we learn from all of you, and maybe you learn from us, and we walk out of here with those friendships being stronger than they were before. So once again, I want to thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here. I apologize, I won't be doing this talk again in Spanish. But yeah, thank you very much, and I look forward to the next few days.
Agradecemos al doctor Favaro por sus valiosas palabras y lo invitamos a permanecer en el escenario. Invitamos a la doctora Claudia Susana Gómez López, rectora general de la Universidad de Guanajuato, a pasar al escenario para realizar la entrega de un reconocimiento al doctor Brett Favaro en el marco de los 25 años de colaboración con KWANTLEN POLYTECHNIC University en Canadá. Invitamos a la doctora Claudia Susana Gómez López, rectora general de la Universidad de Guanajuato, para que nos brinde su mensaje de bienvenida.
Muchas gracias, muy buen día a todas y a todos ustedes, un gusto verles. Me da mucho gusto estar en este 10º aniversario del Foro Y Expo Internacional de la Universidad de Guanajuato. Me da mucho gusto también ver que está presente no solamente la Administración Central de la Universidad de Guanajuato, sino que está presente los 4 campus y el Colegio de Nivel Medio Superior a través de las rectorías de los campus, porque es a través de los campus en donde están las divisiones, en donde están las escuelas en el colegio, es decir, donde están las y los estudiantes, que es donde primero queremos impactar, como bien dijo la maestra Adriana Aguilera. También dar las gracias y hacer propias las menciones que ha hecho como invitadas e invitados especiales nuestro maestro de ceremonias, el maestro Eric Sánchez Robles, de la Dirección de Internacionalización. También aunque ya la maestra Adriana Aguilera hizo referencia a todas invitadas e invitados, no solamente las instituciones de educación pública internacionales, sino también esta cada vez más creciente, pese a la situación que estamos viviendo como instituciones de educación superior, la restricción de los recursos. A mí se me hace increíble que estemos haciendo un esfuerzo, porque el esfuerzo no solamente hacemos quienes organizamos el evento, sino también, como bien dijo Adriana, tiene que ver con los esfuerzos institucionales que se hacen al interior de las universidades, porque implica organización, porque implica destinar recursos para el transporte, para la estancia, el material, la charla, e implica una cantidad de esfuerzos de colaboración impresionante. Entonces, de verdad que yo celebro, que a mí me sigue sorprendiendo que iniciamos hace 10 años como institución con un pequeño esfuerzo, yo diría un pequeño gran esfuerzo, pero que hoy sigue prevaleciendo y que además sigue evolucionando justamente con las necesidades. Hay un punto que a mí me gusta mucho de este foro, que tiene que ver con la temática que va evolucionando año con año y que son temas emergentes que tenemos como sociedades. Y qué mejor que discutirlos en grupo, con las y los amigos, en este caso los institucionales. Decirles que también en el centro de este gran proyecto, porque es un proyecto institucional, están también el secretario y las secretarias, desde el punto de vista académico, general y de gestión. A mí me parece también que no ha sido fácil estos 10 años del foro, porque hemos pasado 2 de las ediciones fueron en pandemia, entonces sabemos lo que implicó. Recuerdo un evento similar en otro sentido, la Feria Internacional del Libro, se hizo en línea. Lo mismo sucedió con este Foro Y Expo. Entonces, si es difícil reunir gente que tenga los mismos objetivos, la parte internacional en línea es más complicada, pero tiene que ver con la resiliencia de las sociedades, con la resiliencia que tenemos como personas, como instituciones. Y me alegro mucho estar aquí también en este 10º Foro Internacional de la Universidad de Guanajuato. El año pasado, en el Foro número 9, se trató de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. En estos objetivos hablábamos hace un año en este mismo espacio con una conformación distinta, pues estábamos girados 90 grados, si no mal recuerdo. Ya me dijeron que sí, entonces así fue. Recuerdo mucho hablar de los ODS en miras hacia el año 2030, que íbamos ya un poquito tarde, ¿no? Que a pesar de que tenemos 17 objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, que según una evaluación pues un poco parcial o anticipada por parte de las instituciones que se dedican a ello, es que no vamos a cumplir los objetivos para el año 2030. La que quieran, la de educación, la de disminución de las desigualdades, ciudades sostenibles, género, pesca, alimentación, etcétera, etcétera. Pero resaltábamos que todos los ODS son importantes, pero el más importante es el 17, el de las alianzas estratégicas. ¿Por qué me refiero al 9º foro y no al 10º? Dirán, pues es que es el 10º, el de este año. Pero no está desvinculado, al contrario, para mí está altamente asociado. ¿Por qué? Porque uno de ellos tiene que ver justamente con la sustentabilidad. La sustentabilidad que muy adecuadamente ya nos han hecho ver y que realmente todos los años, y si me apuran, todos los días tenemos llamados del mundo de la naturaleza que nos están diciendo la urgencia con la cual debemos de trabajar. Y no como estamos también como sociedad acostumbrada a que nos digan qué es lo que tenemos que hacer, sino qué tenemos que hacer desde el yo, desde la parte personal para poder propiciar justamente estas posibilidades. Sobre todo cuando hablamos de las pues, fuentes energéticas que son no sostenibles, ¿no? Bueno, no se pueden reproducir a lo largo del tiempo. Uno de ellos es el agua, evidentemente, ¿no? Que con el estrés hídrico que estamos viviendo cada día, pues de manera peor, el calor que estamos sintiendo en estos días no es normal. Ya sabemos que año tras año el aumento en los grados de la temperatura es impresionante. Ahorita está muy bien, porque estamos a las 11 de la mañana, 10 de la mañana. Pero ni les digo cómo estábamos ayer a las 5 de la tarde en este mismo espacio. Estábamos de una manera impresionante. Entonces, tenemos que hacer algo. También mucho tenemos que hacer con nuestras socias y socios, instituciones hermanas. También aquí veo a rectoras, rectores. Decir que también me da mucho gusto ver aquí a mi primer jefe en el estado de Guanajuato sentado en la tercera fila. Él me dio la oportunidad de llegar a Guanajuato, tengo que decirlo. Gracias, ingeniero Eusebio Vega. Y también comentarles que si no hablamos entre nosotras, y como dijo Fred Favaro, que podemos aprender unas de otras, pues tenemos que movernos, ¿no? Tendremos que hacer cosas que seguramente, acciones, más allá de la política pública, institucional, estatal o federal, más bien llamado a la acción. Y una palabra también que hoy se ha mencionado 2 veces, que es generaciones. Tenemos que pensar en nuestras generaciones, no solamente en las futuras, simplemente en las presentes. o también en las pasadas, que siguen estando con nosotros, que están en casa y que siguen viviendo pues estas consecuencias de un mal cuidado, un mal uso de lo que son todos los recursos disponibles. Entonces, esto tenemos que propiciarlo, tenemos que adelantarlo, y es nuestra obligación como universitarias y universitarios de donde vengamos, pues también hacerlo, movernos un poco más. También, obviamente, celebrar mucho los primeros 25 años de la relación que tenemos con KWANTLEN POLYTECHNIC University, que, como ya vimos en el paso previo, los 25 años que nos han ayudado justamente a tener una relación de altísima calidad y con vínculos profundos, y que queremos seguir propiciando a lo largo de los años. Y obviamente las instituciones de educación superior, públicas, privadas, nacionales, internacionales, debemos de actuar en equipo, no como entes aislados que a veces lo hacemos. También agradecer con mucha anticipación a quienes han formado parte de la organización de este año. Veo muchas profesoras y profesores que por muchas décadas prácticamente sé que trabajan estos temas, que trabajan con la comunidad estudiantil para poder hacer un cambio. Y el cambio está en nosotras y nosotros. Y también, yo también quiero hacer un reconocimiento, porque esto no se gestó ni se organizó hace 5 meses, no se gestó hace 5 semanas, sino tiene meses y meses y meses. Como los grandes eventos que valen la pena, esto quizás se toman un par de semanas, un mes, pero al mes ya están pensando cuál es la temática, cuáles son las fechas que vamos a hacer, por la cantidad de esfuerzo de personas que tenemos que mover, ¿no? Y que se mueven justamente por algo que nos interesa, que es la parte internacional. Y si no tenemos experiencias internacionales, es muy difícil irnos afuera por el tema económico simplemente. Traigámoslos a casa. Por eso celebro que estemos en el 10º aniversario del Foro Y Expo Internacional de la Universidad de Guanajuato. Gracias por estar aquí. Felicidades al gran equipo que es la Dirección de Internacionalización a lo largo del tiempo. A ellas y a ellos, y por supuesto a su titular, a la maestra Adriana, que también colabora con toda la Universidad de Guanajuato para que esto sea posible. Muchas gracias, y que sea un gran foro estos 3 días.
Agradecemos a la doctora Gómez López por su distinguido mensaje. Asimismo, les solicitamos permanecer en sus lugares para la toma de la fotografía oficial de este evento. Hemos llegado a la conclusión de esta ceremonia protocolaria, pero iniciamos de inmediato con nuestra conferencia inaugural titulada Designing the Sustainable University, a Roadmap from KPU to the World, a cargo de la doctora Candy Ho, proveniente de KWANTLEN Polytechnic University en Canadá. Muchas gracias. A todas y a todos los asistentes les recordamos que pueden plantear sus preguntas, comentarios, dudas en las papeletas que les fueron entregadas al inicio de esta ceremonia para poderlas plantear a la doctora Candy Ho al final de su conferencia.
Hola. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien. That is the extent of my Spanish. So I would love for you to teach me some new words for the next 3 days I'm here. Yeah? Okay. Fantastic. So excited to be here. And for those of you that I had a chance to meet this morning, you already know that I love bees. Can you tell? I'm fascinated with them. And I think about, I actually have more pictures of bees than probably my child, maybe a little bit more. That's how much I love them. And I admire them so much because they teach us a lot about teamwork. They teach us about how to be, how to connect with one another, how to communicate. And most of all, they are saving our world. I've learned that 1 in every 3 bites of food that we take, we have bees to thank because they're cross-pollinating and creating food for us. So there's a lot to learn. So you see a lot of pictures of bees today, and I think one of the really cool thing is Dr. Susanna had whispered to me earlier, and she said, you have to tell us the origins of the dress. So I will start with that story. I will highlight my friend Adriana a little bit, and I will start by saying that 9 months ago, I was here. I was here at this very campus. I was meeting with Adriana and Ginny across the table. It was my first day in Guanajuato, and I saw a cross in her blazer. She's wearing a bee pin. And I thought to myself, okay, this is interesting. I love bees. So I asked Adriana, what's the story behind bees? And Adriana, in her usual energy, she said, I'm not going to tell you. I will show you. So here's the bee pin that I was talking about. And she showed me, and this is the very first picture that I took inside your campus. There's something about connection and the work that we do and how it all comes together. And later on, when I learned about UG's history on when you started your school, your founder was inspired by the honeycomb, the bees that were right outside the room when she's conceiving what is University of Guanajuato going to look like. So it all comes together. And one of the first lessons I'll depart about sustainability is thinking about what is the story that you want to tell about the work that you do, about your community, about your institution, and how you'll contribute and move forward towards sustainability. And I'll impart a lot of lesson, but at the end, they'll come back together. And I'll share with you a copy of this presentation too at the very end. And so for me, it was my second day in Guanajuato last September, but immediately I felt that sense of connection. It was right there where I've learned I'm here because I'm fascinated and I'm researching and I'm better understanding the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And at the same time, we all have to find our place in sustainability because everybody has a role and responsibility to play. And my colleague, Dr. Brett Favreau, will talk more about that, how everybody can and need to take responsibility. And so I wanted to get a sense. I see many of students in the room. I love the energy that students bring. Who here knows about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? Raise your hand. Okay, some of you here. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to do a quick video on what the Sustainable Development Goals are, just so we can gain a level of familiarity with everybody in the room. So I'm going to play a quick video, and hopefully the sound works. All right, the sound works. Bravo. Okay, and that is your very quick introduction to the 17 SDGs, and now you have to name them all and go. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. There's no test, no quiz. And the idea is if everybody become familiar with this framework, we can do a lot more and we can do a lot more together. So to give you a story and background of how the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, came about, it started in 2015. So exactly 10 years ago, 193 member states and countries that are part of the United Nations, they got together and said, you know what, it's time to move forward, because previously they have the Millennium Development Goals in the early 2000s, but it's not keeping up with the times. And one of the criticism is they're not involving post-secondary and higher education like the ones that we're in today. And so there's more work that needs to be done. And so if everybody can take responsibility in alleviating hunger, poverty, improving mental health and well-being, promoting peace, justice, and strong institutions. And most of all, I've heard it in the welcome speeches today, it's about collaboration and partnership. We're going to get there faster and together. And this decade, from 2020 to 2030, is known as the decade of action, that we need to move forward and take every action we can. And it speaks to the interconnectedness of all of the goals as well. And so I want to put all of the goals here, and there's 17 of them. Is any one of these goals jumping to you right now? Do they speak to you? Okay. Which ones do you think you have responsibility for? Which ones do you like? Okay, shout some answer with me. On the count of 3, everybody say a goal, okay? Unos, tres. Unos, dos, tres. Go. Yeah, okay. You have all named a goal. Your neighbors who have heard you will ask you, how are you going to advance? In fact, this is what my workshop later on is going to talk about as well, but I want you to keep this in mind, okay? And so sometimes, from time to time, I've had students who come in my class and they tell me, these goals are so big. How is one person going to make a difference? What am I going to do about it? So we take some time and we break down the goals. I love quality education. It's what I live and breathe. And I'm a first-generation student who have graduated from all 3 of my degrees at university within my family. My parents never graduated from high school, so it's quality education is what I do to promote every single day. And so if you look at the UN website, I'll give you all the information. Quality education talks about ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education for everybody. Because part of the model is we leave no one behind. And so I apologize, the fonts are really small, but you'll get a copy of these slides. But it's the idea that, you know, what is successful, what does quality education look like when we are successful? So it's broken down into targets and indicators, and there is 169 of them. There's a lot of them. There's a long list of things that we need to do. But I want to point your attention to that very last one. Not only we want to make education accessible and equitable, and at the same time, we want to make sure that everybody acquires skills and knowledge to promote sustainable development, because that's where it starts. And education for sustainable development benefits everybody. And I'll talk about that more in my workshop as well. But I want to give you a framework and what each individual goal can be broken down into. And so with that in mind, let me tell you, before I go into what we're doing at KPU, and we're doing a lot of things at KPU, how I got into the Sustainable Development Goals in the very first place. First of all, a confession for you all. When I first heard about, so I'm in arts and social sciences, my background is in career development. And before I heard about the Sustainable Development Goals, when I think sustainable, I thought to myself, that's for the science people. That's for the Brett Favreaus in the world, you know? But then, a really good friend from teaching and learning sat me down and talk to me about sustainable development and about the goals. And at the end, I was so happy to be wrong. I think it's one of the few moments in my life where I'm like, thank goodness I'm wrong, because I would have missed an opportunity to enhance my own learning, my own journey towards sustainable development, and I would miss an important framework that I can integrate in career development with my students. And now I get to travel around the world talking about this with career development professionals, which really helps me feel my purpose. So speaking of purpose, I teach a final year career development class with, with students that are in their senior years. They're ready to graduate, they're ready to move on, and really excited about graduating from KPU and moving forward. So students, or is there anybody who is thinking about going to graduate schools, doing more studies? If you are, raise your hand, or your fan, okay? What about looking for your first permanent job? Looking for your first job after graduation? Okay, C. Who's excited to go travel? Who's excited to run their own business? Yeah, so a wide variety of students here. And so my course is, I call it a choose your own adventure course. Students get to come in and they get to tell me and themselves what is it that they want to do and use this course towards, and we use the SDGs. So they don't tell me that they want to be a doctor, they're applying for school first. They tell me which one of the 17 SDGs that they want to work towards, and then we'll talk about their aspiration. And from doing this for it's been 6 years, since 2019, I've learned that when I teach with the SDGs, I actually have students focus on these questions. I get them to think about what is the world that they want to grow and learn and transform into. And then so it's from big picture questions into smaller questions. So we take walks around the community. That's actually one of their homework, is go take a walk in the community, go read, newspapers if they still have them available, but tell me what's going on in your local community. What are some of the problems and opportunities in the world that you're seeing that needs our attention? And then finally, the focus is now on them. What are your skills, talents, and attributes that you have in order to contribute to the problems, the opportunities that you're seeing, to improve the conditions of the world? And ultimately, this last question here, what do they care about? In my course, I talk about connecting the head and the heart. We make a lot, how many of you, when you make decisions, you think a lot in your head? Okay? How many of you use your heart? How many of you use both? Yeah, so being able to connect both really is important, because they can care about a lot of things, but there's so much that's going on in the world that they need to help, so we need to think about prioritizing and what exactly does that mean. So I represent, as a faculty member, the teaching and learning front and what that looks like, and I'll say a little bit more about that later. And so let me bring you to Canada. What was happening in Canada after 2015, when the United Nations has set this agenda for the SDGs. In 2020, Universities Canada, which is an association consisting of universities, a lot of major universities in Canada, they got together and said, you know what? The SDG document has now named higher education as one of the key partners, so we need to do something. And then between 2015 to 2020, our Canadian government have also developed a whole new department dedicated towards tracking and promoting success of the SDGs. And so, the higher education, post-secondary institutions have a lot of work to do. So we joined forces. University Canada came with this document and said, you know what? institutions that are within our membership need to do something. We'll let you figure out what that is, but there is a responsibility for you to report back. And then KPU, my university, Kwantlen Polytechnic University, in 2022, my president, Dr. Alan Davis, signed the SDG Accord amongst other global institutions and organizations. Basically, he's agreed to make a commitment that we will advance the SDGs. Okay, that's wonderful, and then what? What do? Again, really big, daunting goal. So what we set out to do later on is we now integrate sustainability, definition of sustainability in our strategic plan. And I was hired on that year to look at mapping. So identifying where are the SDGs taking place? How do we go about looking at that information? Because we have to look at operations, we have to look at teaching and learning programs and courses. Where are the SDGs happening? And there's a lot of awareness generation too, because sometimes people know, people are doing their work and they're doing their work amazingly, but they don't necessarily know that they're advancing towards the SDGs. So there's a lot of education and learning around that and speaking with colleagues. And so overall, in generating awareness of what that is, we can be better positioned. And I'll say that a lot of developments have happened then, and I'll also say that the work is not done. The work is never done. So getting our grounding, what did we do around that time? We have a project steering committee so that I can be kept on track and stay within and out of trouble, because as a faculty member, I'm one single person. How is it possible for me to know what's going on out there? So I need to work on connecting with people. And my career development background helps position me to help people better understand their stories. So my question was, what were the stories of sustainability and sustainable development that we're telling right now? What is the story and we want to become? So connecting the past, the present, and the future. I got to work with an amazing team. I've got 2 faculty members, 1 student, and 1 alumni who joined the team, and it was a really fun project. So I was engaged for a 1-year project. We also had a chance to talk to both internal and external partners. So folks within KPU, Brett, we had a conversation about that very early on, and also external partners. So professional associations like colleges and institutes of Canada, who was starting their journey on the SDGs as well. But the more people I talk with, the conclusion I'm left with is every institution has their own way, different way of doing it that aligns with their culture, but it's exciting and it's difficult at the same time, because I was looking for, is there a book or guideline that we're looking at mapping the SDGs? Turns out 1 year later, our project became a case study for one of the manuals that are mapping the SDGs. So we joke, we said we're 1 year early, but now we got to leave our legacy and set the stage for that. In terms of taking flight, whichever university committees, Senate priorities, academic councils, and every faculty, whenever they grant us audience, we're in. We're talking about the SDGs. We're showing people, faculty members, this is what it could look like. And chances are, we'd love to collaborate with all of you and learn more as well. And so, public consultations, and I'll share some of the insights that I got from students, because we did consultations at every single one of our campus. In fact, we have 5 campuses. We did 10, so 2 in each. We gave away a lot of SDG pins. Some members are wearing the SDG pins today. We bribed students with a lot of fruit so that they will come and chat with us. But we also did some games around the SDGs to generate knowledge. And so we've got students who are involved from the start, because we have student ambassadors that we hired that helped us promote the SDGs in their classroom, in their social activities, everything. So it was a very, very busy 2 semesters, but we gather a lot of information. So let me show you one of that information. We survey over 1,000 students the fall of 2022, where we asked them 3 quick questions. We went into classroom, we had some tables outside of some main places, but we asked them 3 questions. Which one of the SDGs are important to you, and tell us why? And then we also asked them, in what ways do you think is KPU advancing the SDGs? How should KPU continue to advance the SDGs? So we got a lot of really thoughtful advice. Over 1,000 qualitative responses, which I'm happy to show you, but in the interest of time, here's one of the really interesting trends. The first one, which SDG is important to you as an individual, and why? Does it surprise anybody that good health and well-being is a priority? Do you care about good health and well-being? Your own good health and well-being, right? And so when we presented this data to our friends in student services, they leveraged some of this data to re-strategize and reshape the mental health and well-being programming that they have. And then we asked them that last 2 questions. How is KPU supporting the SDGs? Where do you see our opportunities? Both of them, quality education. And they talk about things like, I learn about the SDGs in my class, or I would love for more opportunity to learn about SDGs. Can some of our teachers get further training? And things like, you know, there's not enough, like, for instance, I think around the same time we started composting and you know, much more comprehensive bins that are on our campuses, but it still happens to me. I see new students that are coming in, they're holding some garbage, they're like, I don't know which bin to put it into. Right? As much as it's labeled well, I think there's also an opportunity for signages, and many people speak about it on how does this contribute to the SDGs? How does our campus design, what does that look like? Accessibility, right? We have gender-neutral bathrooms. We have accessible bathrooms and spaces, but we are not doing a good enough job to tell the story and how it connects. So there's more work to do there. But there's also things that are very exciting. So speaking of stories, my friend and colleague, Ian Hunter, who is the Director of Maintenance and Operations, he was one of the people that I got to talk with. So I've put a call out. Can everybody within the KPU community nominate somebody that we should be talking with about sustainability? Ian was one of them. And so here is a picture in the fall of our beautiful Surrey campus during the day. Ian was part of the group that was managing a forest management project. Before this project came about, the story is whenever we see trees that look like they were towards the end of their life, they just get cut down. There's no conversations. Until faculty members come in and said, what are you doing? Actually, you know, and especially there is a forest that's behind in the middle of our campus that when we saw some of the trees that are being cut down, faculty and students were getting upset because some of the classes were actually held there in that forest. So I think Ian was being put to charge to say, well, we need to better understand who's actually using some of our outdoor spaces as teaching spaces. And to some extent, some of the faculty members even said, these trees are actually our teaching assistants. They are fellow educators that we need to preserve. So the Forest Management Committee came together, consisting of faculty, student representation, campus community, and Elder Lakeaton, our Indigenous elder, is also part of that committee. They actually went to every single tree on that campus, and together they assessed what is the age of that tree, what is that health of that tree, and making a collective decision on what are we going to do? Is there anything we can do to better preserve and grow the tree, for one? Or is it time for us to think about having the tree cut down, but with the wood being donated back to the KWANTLEN First Nation? So there is a way of continuing that circle and giving back to the community and doing it in a humane way as well. And so beautiful management project. This is our campus at night. You'll see the color. It's orange. September 30th every year is our National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And it's to acknowledge that the indigenous communities and the atrocities that were done to indigenous communities. And as a way towards reconciliation, our campus on September 30th turns orange. If anybody has heard of Orange Shirt Day, I'd love to tell you more about it. It talks about the idea of anti-bullying, courage, and justice. Hence, for that reason, our campus turns orange. And so it was an amazing conversation with Ian, but then I walk away because it was just him and I and a couple of other students thinking to myself, we're only 3 people who have heard that story. We can't have Ian go around and tell everybody, so it led me to think KPU, just like any other institutions, need to tell a better story, right? Nobody aside from people who might make that connection would know, why did we turn the light orange or not any other color, right? So what are we doing to communicate that? And I will share that at the end here. So we also did an environmental scan because my Vice President Academic, Dr. Diane Purvey, wanted us to learn what's going on around the world related to sustainability that we need to learn about. So we call this the Research Project Part 2, because we looked at internally within KPU. Now we need to look outward. So we looked at, I think we started with hundreds of institutions that are promoting sustainability. And looking at the culture of KPU, we pared down to 40 institutions and learning about what they're doing. And so we compile data and practices on how are they advancing the SDGs, and I'll share with you some of them in a little bit because they are super neat. And how do they align with governance in terms of policy? How do they align with operations in terms of procurement? The food that we serve in cafeteria, for instance, where do they come from? How do they align with the supply chain? How far do they have to come in order to land at our plates? Physical campus. So constructions, renovations, every single detail related all the way to academics, to learning programs, to student engagement. So this aligns with our sustainability plan as well. And that's one of the things that we need to make sure is that this mapping project has to talk to all the other documents that's related to KPU. So let me show you another very cool video. So one of these neat practices that we learn is the Fair Trade program at Simon Fraser University, where I still live in and went to school for. So really cool cartoon about fair trade.
In 2020, we're all rapidly adjusting to living in a virtual world. Even when we can't physically be together, we know there is still someone at the other end of a call. And the choices we make still have real-life consequences. Back on SFU's physical campuses, we know that our choices make a difference too. In fact, every product we buy connects back to the people who produce it. And as we engage with the world, we believe it's our responsibility as a university to treat everyone with equity, fairness, and respect. For the efforts we've made, we're proud to announce that SFU has been designated as the first Gold Fair Trade campus in Canada. Fair trade products guarantee that farmers and workers are protected by fair trade standards. These standards include providing farmers a fair price for goods they produce, protecting workers' rights, preserving the environment, and investing in local communities. This hasn't happened overnight. Since starting our fair trade journey, we've made changes to our buying processes and policies, advocated for local businesses to sell fair trade products, and introduced the Student Fair Trade Ambassador Program. It's making a difference. Through our advocacy work, Starbucks introduced Fair Trade Certified Espresso at SFU in 2013, a first on any Canadian university campus, and now offers it on other campuses across the country. Meanwhile, we've been busy adding more and more fair trade certified products on our campuses. The choices we make matter, And when we choose to buy fair trade in our daily lives, whether on campus or at home, we're working together to make the world a better place. Learn more about fair trade at SFU and what you can do to make a difference at sfu.ca/fairtrade.
Very cool, hey? So, speaks to the spirit of collaboration, being intentional. And I remember I was an alumni then. I've recently graduated from my doctorate at that time, but I participated in one of the consultations that they have as a university resident, because I still live up on that campus. If anybody ever wants to come visit, let me know. I can take you to that Starbucks where they're doing fair trade coffee, and it is delicious. But it's the idea that they get everybody involved in the consultation, that nobody is left behind, and they know that it is a very, very hard, worthwhile journey ahead, but they need people to be on board. So what does that look like? And also the education, that video in itself is education in helping people understand what exactly is fair trade. Why is Simon Fraser University actively doing this? And what are the results? What's the impact that each institution is hoping to make? And so let me give you two more examples. This one, University of Toronto. They have a rooftop farm in their engineering campus that is growing vegetables, that's growing, making honey, all kinds of products. And they donate 5,000 tons of food to local neighborhoods every single year, and that's growing. And what's really cool about this is before that, there's not a lot of rooftop gardens, or not a lot of rooftop gardens that are successful. And now this becomes a test case for people to look at, to say, what are you doing that's helping, and how can we make a difference? And so some of the things that were learned from that rooftop garden project is whatever plants that you put in, that you're hoping to grow, it has to be short. Anything that's taller, like sunflower, they won't have the support that they need. And because this is a relatively old building, they want to make sure that it's not too heavy on the rooftop as well. They are growing cool things like purple tomatoes. Have you ever heard of purple tomatoes? I'd love to try one. Apparently a different color of asparagus, so a lot of things. And this is, by the way, an alumni, so students who have graduated, an alumni-driven initiative. Every year, they have alumni involvement to go back and to promote the garden and say, we are making a difference. So speaking of engagement, cultivating a sense of belonging, and even when students are done school, they're coming back because the idea of growing something together is making those connections once again. Let's travel out of Canada and look at the UK. University of Manchester is one of the first post-secondary education that have joined the living wage employer designation in the UK. The UK higher education market is highly competitive. So when they were asked, well, why? Why is that important to you? Living wage employer, what does that mean? And what does that look like? Their justification is beautiful because they said, you know what? People have worked really hard at our university. Staff and faculty are our greatest resources. If we pay them well, if we pay them beyond decent living wage, they're happier, they live better lives, and I get that in career development. And not only that, when they are much more satisfied, they have a sense of belonging, that the university is there for them, and they better serve students as a result. So this is another full cycle moment, right? So the idea from looking at the environmental scan is no matter which SDG you choose, start with one, start with any one, because it'll continue to make a difference. Let's come back to Canada. Every year, starting actually 2 years ago, 2023, post-secondary institutions realize, hey, some of us are doing SDGs, doing things related to the SDGs. How about we have an SDG Month Canada? So a month, as you can see, a week turned into a month, and it turned into a year round. So this is friends from UBC actually are on the committee that have started this, along with colleges and institutes of Canada and a couple of other professional associations that are convening universities in putting that together. Universities and colleges actually. And there are panels, there are exhibits, there are online in-person events that no matter which institution you're from, you can go to another university. I went to a couple events at UBC to learn more about what they're up to. So students have the benefit of learning in other institutions. And I know that's what you're doing today for the next 3 days as well, because you've also offered students outside of UG to be here. And it's wonderful that we have a broader community here. So to tell you a little bit of what KPU was up to this year, we have a Indigenous knowledge keeper who came and taught us wool weaving. Does anybody like arts and crafts and making things here? I love it. If my fingers are free, it means that I need to be touching something and doing something because I like to keep busy. So wool weaving. We had a conversation about sustainability, the idea of connections, the idea of coming together when we were weaving. And of course, the knowledge keeper kept us engaged with Indigenous knowledge, and that was wonderful. Students who were in fine arts, they did a forward exhibit. I don't know if you can see from this quilt, but the words on the quilt is, I remember thinking that things would be easier when I don't take up so much space. Now, I just take up space. So there's a social justice, there's an equity theme into the exhibit that was available in our art gallery. And then we also have the top right corner there, my colleague Lindsay Clayton. She's an accounting instructor, so they did Pechakucha presentations on teachers that are using the SDGs in their teaching. So I think it's 20 seconds, 20 slides, quick presentations where they're talking about what they've learned, what their students learn, and how will they move forward with integrating the SDGs. I'm biased. Here's my favorite one at the end, the clothing swap. So KPU Sustainability Club has, so the SDG month is in March. 5 months before that, the students have already started collecting, hey, are there any gently used, decent clothes that you'd like to donate towards this clothing swap? So they took 5 months to put this together for 1 day, because we know decent living. Students don't have enough time, they don't have enough resources, and if we're able to talk about what we can do to combat fast fashion, here's an opportunity to do that. But I don't want you to just hear it from me. I want to hear from Honey Matthew, who is our wonderful president, a student in Green Business and Management from the KPU Sustainability Club. So she and her vice president will talk a little bit more about what she's doing.
The Student Sustainability Club came up with an idea to encourage clothes swapping and more of like a slow fashion trend that we believe is something that we need to come up with and popularize among students. So we set up this cloth donations points and pickup points where students can bring their old clothes. And then we decided during the SDG month to have an event where we celebrate swapping the clothes. The idea is to take home the concept of reusing and also encouraging others to practice swapping. Maybe you can swap with your friends, with your family members. You don't have to buy every time.
So I think to some extent sustainability is ingrained in our core values, and one of the things that in all of our classes I'm sure we've been through is like fast fashion and how much clothes end up in landfills and as waste, and it's one of the little things that we can do as a club to help alleviate that problem. Even if it's just like a small impact, it's still an impact.
There you go. I was so impressed by this initiative. I always like to ask why. So what happened? What motivated you to do this? So I had a chat with Honey here, and I asked her, you know, the connecting with head and heart thing is really important. So 5 months is a lot of time to put things together, every single detail. So what got you inspired and motivated to do this? And here's what she said. So the idea of putting thought into action, which is KPU's model, combining practical mindset with the belief that positive change is achievable. The idea of hope and taking action to generate hope. And then the symbolic of pushing ourselves to act than just discuss. Right? You can discuss until the end of the day, until the stars, until the night comes out, but until you act, until you do something, anything, we can't move forward. And so I'm really inspired, and I wanted to thank Honey for sharing this with us. And so as we move towards the end, I want to share a little bit about what ended up happening. So this was based off a report that was generated in April 2023, but now I have the benefit to tell you what has gone on since then. This is my friend and colleague, Alicia Gowan. She's got the most amazing smile, and what she's holding is a certificate signifying that KPU has received silver designation on the STARS system. And STARS stands for Sustainability Tracking, Assessment, and Rating Systems. It's an honor to achieve this, and I don't think I will do enough justice on acknowledging all of the work that Alicia has done. I had a team, and we talked to a lot of people. Alicia is one person who have talked to probably far more people than we would have, because it is a very intensive reporting process. Once again, looking at academics, looking at operations, looking at leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So for us, for our very first try to get to the silver level, it's amazing. And I know we've got aspirations to go to gold and go to platinum and to join forces with other institutions as well. So this recognition had just happened, I believe, in 2024. And again, more to come. The recommendations that came up from that year of research and study also talked about we're not talking to each other. It's like any, universities are like any institution. There's a lot of silos, right? Like we are so entrenched in the work that we do, we hardly have the opportunity and the time to come together, and it's a missed opportunity when we do that. So we needed to look for ways to enhance cross-functional collaboration. So after the project's done, we established a sustainability hub that is chaired by faculty member Dr. Marianne Eva and Channy Joseph from the Sustainability Office, where they bring in people from operations, student staff, faculty, student services to come in and just become a forum every couple months to talk about what's happening right now. What can we do to keep each other updated? What are problems and opportunities that we're seeing that we're not addressing that we should? And how can we work together? So by keeping each other updated, at least in the very beginning, we would know. And then the collaboration, as we get to know each other, that will come along. And as a faculty member, I'm very siloed in my work. I come, I teach my classes, and then I go home. But it's through being part of activities like this that I got to know KPU a lot better and KPU's people a lot better. And I don't think I would be here talking with you about it if I didn't have those opportunities. And so there are 3 themes. Here's the second theme, is to promote the support of teaching of the SDGs. Students have said, SDGs are wonderful, but I am here to be a really good student, and marks are really important, so unless, there are some students who are really honest, unless it is for marks, I'm not gonna do it. And so, Part of it is getting teachers and educators to see for themselves, how can you teach with the SDGs? I've shared with you that I had some misconception around the Sustainable Development Goals, but since then have changed my mind to a completely different direction. It is my dream and desire to see more of me changing minds, more faculty members changing their minds and seeing, I think I'm already teaching SDGs. I just need to bring it a notch up, a little bit closer towards that. Or how can I start? What does framework look like? How can I inspire my department of faculty to move forward with things like that? Ultimately, benefiting students. Many of you are here. And then the final recommendation we have is, how do we educate the KPU community on the SDGs at every single opportunity? So going back to my friend Ian Hunter's story, why is the campus turning orange in September for that? Does anybody know? How do we get people to learn more of that? So it's about having signage is one, so people can read about it, but also incorporating it in new staff orientation, new faculty, new student orientation, where I want to see when people are going on tours, that is in the tour guide's script and their words to say, we are moving towards sustainable development goals, and here are some of the ways. And I actually incorporate it in teaching and learning too, because in one of my classes, I actually get my students to do an SDG scavenger hunt, where there's no right answers. They just need to go around campus and tell me, what did they see are honoring the SDGs and how? And they do a photo scavenger hunt, and they print pictures, and we have a slideshow at the end where we, the winner gets a prize, right? They do it in groups. It's active, it's fun, it gets them to learn more about their campus and cultivating that sense of belonging and responsibility. And so I really like that phrase, each one, teach one. Every single one of us have something to teach. It's up to us to determine whether or not we're ready for that responsibility. What is it that we have and get to teach, and how we'll share that knowledge with future generations. And so as we move towards the end of this is ultimately the framework that we use, and we're still using that. You'll see step one was the mapping. Map what you're already doing, and at the same time, step two, building capacity and ownership of the SDGs. Like I said before, not a lot of people know that they are already doing works related to the SDGs. So for Ian, the Director of Operations, he did not know that he was working to advance life on land with the trees, and certainly quality education, right? Learning experience for both faculty and students. So step one and step two, I would say we're still working on that. The mapping project, phase one is over, but there's so much more to do along the way. And then step three, identifying priorities and ways to collaborate, opportunities, and where are the gaps. Where we can also think about implementing, integrating. So they go hand in hand until that, I don't want to call it the last step, but we need to continue to monitor, evaluate, and communicate, hence the tracking system, hence perhaps some of the things that Dr. Brett, you'll get to talk about as part of the climate strategy. And on the right there, you'll see recognition, opportunities, and organizing principles. So I want to highlight these a little bit. So we've got the steps, but these are the questions that we ultimately asked at KPU when we looked at the mapping project. So things like, what is our place in advancing sustainability as human beings in our institutions, so at KPU, and with the communities that we serve? How can we connect the head and the heart to inspire action, right? To get people believing that they can make a difference, so that they will. And then under opportunities, what do we know? What don't we know? And what do we need to learn? And what are the quick wins? So this is a motivating factor. If we're able to identify what are some of the things that we can do that are within reach, that we can do relatively easier, not to say we're going to stop there, but it's going to transpire motivation and allow us to take further action. And then the last one within organizing principle is how can we best communicate our efforts? Make it explicit, make it transparent out there, and in what ways can we cross-pollinate, learn from, and collaborate with one another? And one more key question is, along with taking action, think about who are you doing this for? So I'm the guardian of this bee, by the way. In my small apartment, I've started beekeeping. And I learned that there is a type of bee. So when we think of bees, we think about honeybees, the bright yellow, black and yellow stripe. This is not a fly. This is a bee called the mason bee. And I've learned that mason bees, they don't have a hive. They actually live in individual apartments because they're known as solitary bees. So they might say hi to the neighbor, but they don't really work closely together. But it's the idea that, even one bee, one single mason bee can make a difference. So I'll give you 5 seconds to answer that next question. Who are you taking that action for? And for me, it's my son, it's my 1-year-old niece. Because you always have to think about the people who's on the receiving end. And as Adriana said, I love you for sharing that definition of sustainability, right? Looking at our present resources that are available to us without compromising the future. When I have the chance to meet with my indigenous elder to get his advice, he reminded me of the 7-generation principle. It's the idea that the last 7 generations had taken tremendous care of us. That's why we're here. That's why we got to be here. And now it's our responsibility to take care of the next 7 generations. Okay? So, can you all think of somebody that you're doing this work for? Okay, I see nods. I hope to see more nods at the end of this. And if you want to come up and tell me a story of who are you doing this for, I'd love to hear it. And I may have prizes, okay? And so the last thing I'll leave you with before we open up the floor for questions is this is a display that I saw the very last time I was in DC. Where, you know what, I'm not going to say more. I'm just going to play the short script, the short recording, and then you can see what I mean. So we started with, this present moment used to be the unimaginable future. And then it turned into, this moment used to be the future. And then everything disappeared. I find it really striking in the work that we do in higher education and sustainability that we need to work on. The present is the only moment we have right now. We can imagine all the things that can happen, that may happen in the future. And it might result in all kinds of feelings. But the only moment that we can act right now is the present before it becomes unimaginable. And so, my friends, my amigos, the time to act is now. And I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be here and really excited to engage with all of you at this conference for the next couple of days. Gracias.
We just have 2 mics and 3 questions. Thank you, Candy. It's so impressive and beautiful to have an inspiring teacher speaking to us. Thank you. Our first question is from Dr. Roberto Castro. What role can technology play in enhancing education quality and accessibility for everyone?
Thank you, gracias. Thank you for that question. In my classes, I teach the importance of digital literacy. You'll see that for those that are joining me in my workshop later, that plays a big role. And so related to that question, I think we need to leverage all kinds of technology to be helping us advance towards the future. And I think one of the things that my students and I talk about certainly is generative AI and how it's helping us towards our career development. And so, you know, we can pose questions related to that on how do we move towards sustainable development. And in fact, one of the new tools that I've been playing with, in case you're interested, it's called Climate GPT. It was recommended to me by Ellen Pond, and another amazing faculty member. So Climate GPT is one that I'm looking at right now. And as I said, I don't come from the science or environmental sciences background. I come from humanities. So a lot of things, when I'm putting information out there, I need them to be fact-checked. And so Climate GPT helps me, enables me to answer, to ask the silliest questions that, you know, I wouldn't know. It enables me to be a little bit dumb, but there's room to learn when there's so much gap. So I think the last time I put in a question, I was asking something, I think I was asking something about bees. You know, how can we expand, because not a lot of people know about mason bees and that we can raise solitary bees in balconies, in small apartments. So I asked, how can we expand that further? And they sent me 2 links on, I think Colombia might be doing something like that with greening their spaces, but increasing cross-pollinators. And there is another country that escaped me for the moment that actually incentivizes people to do more beekeeping within their own backyards or within their spaces, and how to go about doing that. So tremendous technology can be leveraged. And of course, there is another, there's a couple of newsletters that I can send. I'll share as part of my resources if people want to stay up to date with the latest trend, with one of them being superhuman AI. So daily newsletter that comes every day with trends that are related to technology. From time to time, they talk about environment and advancement. There you go.
Sorry. What SDGs do you think would a future interior designer could apply? We're going specific.
I know, I like these specific questions. Whoever asked that, if you were asking me in person, I would be like, what do you think? Only because it has to be personal. So if we have many, who are future interior designers and architects in the room? Yay! I like the cheerfulness. Wonderful. If I were to ask you which one of the SDG do you think you'll advance, I am willing to bet you're going to each give me a different answer. Why is that? Because aside from being a future interior designer, you might be student volunteers. You might be active in your community. So because of that, the answers will be different. But if you were to press me for an answer, I might say something like responsible consumption and production. Because as part of what you do in interior design, researching, shopping for sustainable materials, every decision that you're making, that you get to make for future clients that you work with. And the reason why I know this very intimately is I'm working with an interior designer right now to maximize our space, to make it more sustainable. But being able to choose as a client from different types of fabric to a paint that will absorb heat so that my my air condition bills doesn't go up tremendously in the summer, they all make a difference. So I want you to be really cognizant of that when you go into your future profession. And if you're attending my workshop later, we can talk more about that too.
Thank you. There's another one. Food has a strong impact on climate change. Does KPU cafeterias promote plant-based options?
Yeah. So answering your first question, who has an impact? All of you. every single one of us have an impact, and we can do something about that. The second option, does KPU have a plant-based option? Yeah,
Sorry?
so
I was
go ahead.
reading the next one,
Yeah.
so I missed. When you met resistance, e.g. from administration or government, how do you face it?
Okay, so wait, going back to that question about plant-based option, it's starting. My understanding from students is that they'd like to see more of a variety, but it's happening. Could you please repeat the second question, per favor?
I mixed them all.
So many questions, gracias.
I mixed them all. I don't remember which one was the second one. Shall we pass into the next one?
Yeah, there was a question about government.
Yeah, okay. I'll try to look quickly for it. No, not as quickly as I can. When you find resistance something. Designer. Here it is. When you met resistance from administration or government, how do you face it?
Oh man, do you have time for another keynote? Okay, so I think about tension in maybe in a physical way. So if I put two fists together, you against resistance, government, administration, or like in any other party that you're hoping to oppose, nobody wins when you're putting the same force. The right way, well, not the right way, one of the ways I approach this is the nudging, right? So if you kind of not go hand in hand, but if you do this, you're changing people's motion and reaction. So what does that look like? It looks like understanding their platform, their perspective, speaking their language. I do this a lot in career development, and in fact, we're embarking on a national campaign on career development advocacy, and one of the exercises that we get to do is who is the person, who are the groups that you're trying to appeal and convince? What are they like? What are they like day to day? What's their living, their lifestyle like? What do they care about? And do you see any commonalities between what you care about and what they care about? Because if that's the case, you've got something in common that you can talk about. So go in there first. Think about advocacy as it's never about you, it's about them first, and then it can be about both of you, if that makes sense.
Wonderful. What kind of activities make in the university to connect head and heart? How is responsible for the staff and professors of the SDGs? How is their response?
How's their response?
From the staff and professors.
I think about the framework, the early adoption curve, and maybe we'll do an activity here. How many of you, for instance, when the new iPhone comes out, when new technology comes out, you're the first one that's lining up at the store, saying, I must get it. Okay, you're all smart people. I use very old technology until they break down. So I think about the idea of early adopters, the people who already know about the SDGs when we started the mapping project. They're on board. So the idea is, how can we help these people? How can we have these people identify as our champion bees that they can cross-pollinate? Is it a faculty member who can talk about the SDGs in their department and how they're using it to inspire others? Is it a student who can talk about it in their classes? So the early adopters, you've already won them over. So your goal is to keep communicating with them. It's the middle adopters that are like, you know what? I like this, but I'm not sure how to go about it, that we can inspire the greatest change. Because if they don't know, it means helping them understand where is their place within promoting and advancing the SDGs, and then getting them to come up with ideas and conclusion for themselves. And then you keep going.
Great. We have a very enthusiastic person here who asks more than one question. I think this one would be the last question But I will invite every one of you to reach personally to Candy and talk about it. And with this final round of questions, we close this stage. So what role do you think students can play in the accelerating process towards SDGs? How can we get involved in the SDGs as students? How can we ensure that SDGs are implemented effectively in action an international country? In what ways can children be part of the SDGs and make more real difference?
First of all, I love this person. Thank you. Gracias. Man, in so many ways. So, for instance, an easy way is if you don't see SDGs within your curriculum, ask your faculty member why and what might you as a class be able to do to learn more about these connections. Google the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and get educated and learn about that yourself. There's tons and tons of resources. And then the other thing is getting involved. You saw that video of Honey Matthew, the president of the KPU Sustainability Club. I would say a year ago, she was just starting. She was, I don't want to say just a student because she's amazing, but she was a student about to graduate within her final year, and she thought, you know what, I need to make the best out of my final year. What am I passionate about? What do I care about? How can I leverage my knowledge in green business and sustainability towards making KPU a better place? So I ask you this, what can you do to make your university and community a better place that aligns with something that you can do, something that you're passionate about? So it speaks to the idea of the Japanese concept ikigai. Ikigai means a reason for being or purpose. So what are you good at? What do you like to do? What does the world need? And this last question, important to all of us, is what will the world pay you to do? Right? There's so much you can do. Roll up the sleeves and volunteer for the community. But SDG 8 is decent work and economic growth. So you also need to be compensated for the work that you do. Gracias, everybody.
A continuación, se procederá a la entrega de un obsequio por parte de la doctora Claudia Susana Gómez López y de un reconocimiento por parte de la doctora Diana del Consuelo Caldera González, secretaria académica de la Universidad de Guanajuato. Tenemos también un presente para la doctora Candy Ho. Con eso terminamos nuestra ceremonia protocolaria de inauguración, así como nuestra conferencia inaugural. Y a continuación, invitamos a todas y a todos los presentes a dirigirse a la expo que se encuentra, Expo Internacional.